Hi, I'm Torunn Grønbekk, and you're listening to Across the Bifrost.
Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
Hello and welcome to Across the Bifrost, the Mighty Thor podcast, where on each and every episode, we explore the world of Marvel's Mighty Thor. I am your host, Ryan Doze, and everybody, new comics are back. Today we're going to be talking about really the last issue of the current run of Thor, Thor number 35, written by our guest. Torunn Grønbekk is back, and Will and I got to sit down and have a fantastic chat with her. We got together on Zoom early one morning. We had some coffee and we just got to hang out for a little while and talk about comics, kind of here and there. We talked a little bit about comics, but mostly just about creative process and some behind the scenes little tidbits that you might not know about Thor number 35 and how Torunn landed the plane on this entire run of Thor. Yeah, we're at the end of what began as the Donny Cates, Nick Klein run on Thor. It's crazy to think that it ran for almost 3 years, over 3 years, and now it is in the books. But Torunn and Will and I are going to be chatting about that in a little bit. Something else we do on our new comics episodes, if you've been around for any length of time, is we talk about the other books that are Thor related or that Thor was in within the last, since we had a new comics episode. And boy, have there been so many crazy things that have happened in the world of Thor since we last talked about new comics. I am just going to breeze through a few of them before we jump into our conversation with Torunn, just so in case you're not picking up those books, you at least kind of know what's going on in the 9 realms, the 10 realms of Marvel Comics as it pertains to Thor and his supporting cast. So I am going to try to do this solo. I was talking to Faz and Will the other day about, doing this solo, and I'll admit, everybody, talking to myself while we record is not my preferred choice, but we're going to make it through, and you're going to find out a little bit about what Thor is doing in new comics lately. So let's jump into the first issue that I have here on the docket. Loki, number 1, came out a little while ago, but we haven't really had time to cover it in the last few weeks. So this comic is written by Dan Watters, and it is drawn by Yerman Peralta. Fantastic creative team. I hope I'm pronouncing all those names right. If not, I apologize. Fantastic story. It starts off with the describing of the building of the ship made of fingernails, Naglfar, and Loki's plan to use it to conquer Asgard and control the 9 realms. So that is kind of the main object, the MacGuffin of this storyline. We come to a point where Loki is tasked with putting back to right some of the pieces of the ship that have fallen into 3 specific areas of the 10 realms, and Thor basically says, hey man, you got to go grab these things before all hell breaks loose. And Loki sets out to do this, and there's some shady stuff happening in Jotunheim, there's some shady stuff happening in Davalier, and we have a mystery unfolding on Midgard where one of the segments of the ship has fallen to. So I liked this as a first issue that kind of sets the anticipation for the rest of the series. We know what Loki is being tasked to do. We know that he's going to have to go to different places. This is it has some of the tent poles of a quintessential Thor related world story where there's a saga, there's an adventure that must be done, and we have some items or some magic-y stuff to do along the way. I think the thing that is going to set this apart, though, is Loki is such an endearing character now, being no longer the god of mischief, but he's the god of stories. He, however, I'm hoping the author Dan Watters has a really cool, fun surprise for us with Loki, because he is known for his surprises. He is known for his lies, for his tricks. So I hope that we're going to get some of those in this series. There was a great moment in this first issue where Thor meets Loki down in Florida, where Loki is just chilling. He's just, having some fun in Florida. And we find out that when you hear those, news stories that start with like Florida man does, and then it's usually something crazy or insane, Loki claims that Florida man is just him. It's just him having fun down in the American Southeast. So I love that little joke. Thor brushes it off, but it had me laughing. I really enjoyed it. And I'm sure there was a dozen other things in this issue that could be focused in on and highlighted, but for just an overview, I enjoyed those moments, and I enjoyed the premise that we are starting this Loki limited series with. I really do hope that it gets the flowers, it gets the excitement going, and that it's a good lead-in for maybe some people that want to pick up a Loki comic before the Loki Disney Plus series comes online in just a matter of months. Oh my goodness, talk about a show that I'm so excited about, and I have such high unrealistic expectations as a fan, because that's what we do as fans. We have unrealistic expectations, and then we just hope and pray that, part of our expectation is met. I think Loki season 2 is going to deliver, and this series is getting me more hyped to see more and more Loki in my comics, in my TV, in my movies. So big win with the debut issue of the latest Loki limited series. Another series that Thor showed up in since we spoke last about new comics is the second issue of Jed MacKay and CF Via's Avengers. This series started off with a bang, where we are fighting giant robot monsters, and then Kang is revealed at the end of the first issue. The second issue really sets us down into this premise that tribulation events are coming, events that are going to cause mass death and human suffering, and the Avengers have been given a heads up on how to stop some of these things. Thor, of course, is in charge of stopping one of these events. I believe it is a train accident in India, and I haven't had a moment to go back and just flip through in the last few weeks, but Thor he plays his role as a part of the Avengers team. Really, this is focusing in on Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, who is leading this team and has this information that Kang gave her so that the Avengers can honestly help humanity, because if humanity suffers and is gone, what is Kang going to conquer? So really some cool little elements that are continuing to be fleshed out here. I think Sam Wilson is really the unspoken MVP of this issue. He stops a tribulation event just by taking over for a truck driver who's about to, we assume, fall asleep at the wheel. Just a fantastic little character building moment from Sam that harkened back to Carol's reason for wanting Sam on the team, is that he needs a man, not a myth or a legend. He needs someone who can speak up for and be an everyday man in the face of these giant troubles that the Avengers are no doubt going to be facing. So Sam Wilson, really my MVP of the issue, even though, hey, we're a Thor podcast. You guys know that. Sometimes it's really easy to focus in on the characters that are a little more human in nature, because they just find different ways to solve problems, as opposed to a god coming in with the power of lightning and thunder and a giant indestructible hammer. So that's just a little character building moment that I really appreciated. But Jed MacKay, CF Via, and the team on Avengers are absolutely killing it so far. And I can't wait to get to the end of this first arc. And really, I think that is when we should start assessing books. I was thinking about this the other day because we've got Immortal Thor coming up, and that's going to be a big release that we're going to be talking about here on the podcast. I think it is a little unfair to writers and artists, specifically writers and editors who are laying out the story for these ongoing series. Maybe once we get to the end of that initial 5-6 issue story arc, that's when we can say, okay, I'm feeling this series or I'm not feeling this series. I think it would be unfair to read, because of how comics are just kind of constructed now, being built for that 5-6 issue story arc. I think it would be unfair for us to look at the first issue of a series, say the Loki series or the first few issues of Avengers, and give it an accurate judgment, because we don't really know the full breadth of the story that is trying to be told at the moment. So I'm really excited for where Jed MacKay is taking Avengers. I'm really excited for where Dan Watters and Yerman Peralta have started taking the Loki series. I'm excited for the foundational bricks that we've laid for these series. And it just got me excited for comics, here to the end of the year. And yeah, so I'm really ready to go with where Thor is at in comics. And that brings me to the last issue I'm going to talk about that isn't Thor 35. I will save my thoughts and opinions for Thor 35 when we get to our conversation with Torunn Grønbekk in just a few minutes. But the other issue that really has highlighted Thor in the last little bit has been this year's Thor Annual. Oh my goodness, everybody. I know that this issue comes after the Thor 35 that we're going to talk about with Torunn, but oh my goodness, this annual was so many things. It was an incredibly fun Thor story. It was an incredibly intense, well-drawn, good grief. Ibrahim Roberson, who's an artist that I'm not overly familiar with, drew the main story in this annual, and oh my goodness, incredible stuff. So many things that I looked at and I was like, that's a wallpaper, that's a poster, I want that on a t-shirt. Just so many things. It reminded me of the feeling that I felt when we saw Martin Cuccolo do Thor for the first time. Now, different artists, different style, different things to appreciate about both of them, but I really, really, really loved Ibrahim Roberson. Again, I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and if not, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, because your artwork is incredible. It's amazing, and I was just so happy to discover and learn another artist. And now I'm going to go read all the comics that I can that this gentleman has drawn. Just fantastic artwork. That was the first thing that jumped off the page at me, because this comic felt so fun and refreshing, and it was fast, and the action just did not stop. We kept, unraveling this story that, while not, the most earth-shattering 10 realms, kind of the hyperbole that we often hear. It was just a crazy story that makes sense given the current run of Thor we just finished, because the premise of it, and I'll let you go read it for yourself, because I really feel like this is an issue you need to go pick up. The premise of this is that Thor is called to Midgard because there is this emptiness. He can't sense the Avengers. He can't sense really anybody on Earth, and he gets to Midgard, and it's shrouded in darkness, and we find out that MODOK of all people, has assembled the broken pieces of the Bifrost Bridge, the Rainbow Bridge, and he has become Mythos. I loved this reimagining of MODOK. That is, I'm assuming that is in large part credit to Colin Kelly, Jackson Lansing, who are one of my favorite duos in comics right now. They're one of my favorite writing teams doing comics right now. They're currently doing Guardians of the Galaxy. They're doing the Steve Rogers Captain America book. I'm sure they're doing other stuff. My goodness, it was so much fun. And then Mythos was definitely part of it. The design for the character was so crazy and bizarre, but also familiar. because if you have not read this comic yet, literally just imagine MODOK, but infected, kind of, combined, amalgamized with the Rainbow Bridge, with, shards from the Rainbow Bridge. I loved it so much. Such a cool story. And this issue really kind of was almost like a palate cleanser. It was a necessary palate cleanser from the previous volume of Thor, which we'd just gotten done with. We just wrapped up a big crazy story with that one. Because let's face it, we all know at this point, if you're a Thor fan, you know that Immortal Thor #1 is coming at the end of August. And you know that we're going to be doing new things with the character. A lot of people saw that he's going back to his classic costume and that Mjolnir has been filled, all the cracks have been filled in. But the question has really been, how did we get to that point? And at the end of this annual, Al Ewing, Martin Coccolo, Matthew Wilson, Joe Sabino, the team that we've gotten so used to on Thor, half the team has changed, half the team is the same, which I love. I love so much that Matt Wilson and Joe Sabino are still going to be on this book, to the best of my knowledge. But then, a friend of the show, Martin Coccolo, is going to be drawing, which I still, I'm smiling just being able to say that. And then the modern legend, Al Ewing, is going to be composing these stories. And if you haven't checked out some of Al Ewing's interviews about his plans for Mortal Thor, please go search them out. He has so much crafted. He has so many ideas for so long. I think the number that he said, he was like, I could see this going for easily 50 issues, maybe beyond. That's incredible. It's incredible to hear a writer that's so excited for this new series, but at the end of this annual, we get kind of the stopgap. We get the bridge between where we've been with, the end of the current run of Thor with Thor 35, which we're about to talk about. But then this little epilogue at the end of the annual serves as that bridge to get us to where, when we start Immortal Thor in August, with the first issue, which I'm sure is going to sell out in like a second, that is going to be understandable because of what we got in this epilogue. So how did Thor get get the kind of like what's old is new kind of threads? He just shows up and he's talking to Sif, and she turns around and she's like, like, what's going on here? And he's wearing his classic uniform and really just kind of says, hey, I may be the All-Father, but I'm still Thor, and I'm not gonna neglect that role just because I am the All-Father. Which I think, hey, right there's some interesting things that we got to figure that out, because one of the things we said about Donny Cates' run was we didn't feel like we got a lot of Thor being Thor or Thor being All-Father. It was kind of like it felt muddled at times and didn't really know what role he was functioning as. So it sounds like here we have a clear, okay, I am All-Father, but I also I've got to remain Thor the hero. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that pans out. I am sure, writers and artists and editors, they're so much smarter than us. They're so much more gifted than us in the world of storytelling. So we choose to trust them to tell the stories that they intend to tell and just to enjoy them as they come. The other thing that was the big aesthetic difference in some of the promotional material for Immortal Thor was, oh my gosh, Mjolnir doesn't have all the cracks anymore. So at one point, Thor says that he's going to give Mjolnir a rebirth. He's going to make it Mjolnir Reborn. And so he uses an incredible amount of cosmic lightning, Thor, Odin energy, and he repairs all the cracks in the hammer. And we get a little hint that, it's going to take kind of a big Thor nap after this one because of all the power that he had to summon to get Mjolnir back to its restored whole state. all in all, friends, there's a lot to love in this book. There's a lot to love in the main story, like we said before, especially that art. Oh my goodness, that art. And the design for Mythos and just kind of the craziness that Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing put in there. But also in this epilogue, there's a lot to appreciate. Martin Coccolo's clean style with Thor and Matt Wilson popping color off of the page with this, what's old is new suit. And I know there's quite a dialogue right now from just people in the Thor world. There's like, oh, I love that we're going back to the old suit. And others being like, oh man, I really loved the Nick Klein design suit. I really enjoy all the Thor suits, except for that one in the late 90s where he had like the Rapunzel hair. If you're listening right now and you know what I'm talking about. That one was a little crazy, but I've loved most other suits that Thor has had. And I'm just kind of waiting to watch this unfold. Like I said, at the end of the first arc, 5-6 issues in, then let's really assess where we're at with this story. Let's let Al Ewing and Martin Coccolo and cover artist Alex Ross, I can't believe I get to say that as well, cover artist Alex Ross and the editorial team, let's let them tell this, first initial story and then assess where we're at with the character and with his aesthetics and, how this version of Thor is going to be different and familiar and all those things that we as comic book fans kind of rely on when we go back to a story, especially for characters that we love and we appreciate. There's a lot to be excited about, and a lot of you that are listening right now are members of our Thor Core. You're members of our Patreon program over there, and there's a link in the episode description. If you're not, you can join today. We got a lot of great folks over there who support us, and we love them for doing that. So that kind of brings us to the end of our new comics talk that doesn't have anything to do with Thor 35. So we're going to take a few second break, and we are going to jump into a conversation with Thor 35 author, writer, fantastic person, Torunn Grønbekk. And Will Rose joined us for this, getting to meet Torunn for the first time. It was a lot of fun. And to be perfectly honest, everybody, there was a whole hour of this conversation that we couldn't put up on the episode, but just fantastically amazing people talking about fun books and just having a good time. So if you are a fan of any of those things, I'm sure you're going to enjoy the next chunk of our episode today. Hello, everyone. Welcome back into our episode here. We are finally going to talk about the big, huge finale of this volume of Thor. Will, have you ever closed out a whole volume of a comic? I feel like we've not talked about a finale yet of like a current comic. It's kind of nuts.
Right. We've read graphic novels and certain runs together.
Right.
In terms of like real time, live time, waiting each month for the grand finale and then talking about how they stuck the landing. This is one of the first times we've done that together. So I'm pretty excited about that.
And everybody, we really couldn't finish talking about this run of comics without the woman who landed the plane. Torunn Grønbekk is our guest right now to talk about Thor 35. Good morning, boss.
Good morning. Oh, I like that. Boss is good. I have
it
I
feels
have
like
an
you're the
artist who
boss
keeps
in this
calling
situation.
me. Well, I have an artist who keeps calling me sir. And I don't have the heart to tell him that I'm a woman. And I rather enjoy it. I feel like it's nice. I feel like everyone should address me as sir. That's good.
Everyone who's
Boss.
listening,
I'm happy.
if you ever meet Torunn in person, sir or boss will do just fine. But Torunn, we're here to talk about Thor 35. You've landed the plane. How does it feel to close out a whole volume of Thor, a character that you've been tied to for a little while now? How does it feel having like that finality to it right now?
Well, I mean, I feel I wrote the issue a while ago, and it's been interesting to see. It's been interesting to see the art come in, and I wrote this entire thing with sort of Nick Klein in mind, and the things that he would really enjoy doing. And I realized at some point, like it was heady for other people to take over.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting. And then a few things have been sort of lost in translation, but I feel pretty good about it. It was an interesting project to take on just because there were a lot of loose threads that we tried to we couldn't tie everything up. So the main thing that we sort of needed to figure out was we had like all the souls in Valhalla were gone, and that felt like we needed to tie that up somehow before we sent it over to Al. And it's been a fucking joy to write. I've had so much fun. I love like Thanos and Doom. They come very easily to me, those horrible men. Thor has been like a dream come true. Like it is a very I'd love to at some point like write my own Thor and do like something where I could just start fresh and do something crazy with Thor. But as I feel like we did what we were supposed to do, and I feel good about like most of it, I suppose. But it is, and I would say like to see it come to an end. I don't know. I feel a little sad about it. I wish we could do more. But then again, I know what Al's going to do, and you're going to fucking love it.
Can't wait.
And I'm looking forward to it too. So I don't know. Yeah. So plane has landed. I'm a little sad about it. I wish we were still in the air, I suppose.
Goodbyes are hard.
Yeah.
But we will manifest another Thor run in your future. We'll do it right now. We're putting it out there.
Please.
It's gonna happen. Talking about pulling the threads together, there's like one page in here where there's like a spider wrapping people up or trolls with webs, and I'm like, there it is, pulling all the strings, the webs together. There it is. There's the book coming together.
Because that's the fucking joy of that thing. The thing is, Sergio, he loves Thor more than anything. I realized when we started. Yeah, and he's phenomenal. And he sent me a message like a couple of years ago, but he just went, I love Valkyrie, I love Thor, I love Thor, I love Thor. And it's like, oh, cool, we love Thor. And then we knew that we would get him for a guest artist here. And it was one of those, we just wanted to make it as Asgardian and as Norse mythology as we can, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then taking them back to like Thor's youth, we sort of, we made that happen for him, and he delivered. Jesus Christ, he's so good.
I love. So you mentioned Nick Klein earlier. You mentioned Sergio, and I'm sure we'll get to Juan Gedeon at some point. Like when we found out, basically halfway through your story, the Blood of the Fathers story, that Nick Klein's peacing out, and you know, those bastards over at the Incredible Hulk get him, and you know, Philip Kennedy Johnson and him like had an absolute banger first outing with that the first issue of Hulk. I was a little like, I reached out to some of my friends that are Hulk fans. I'm like, first of all, you guys suck. And that's before we had found out that Martin Coccolo was going to be drawing Immortal Thor. So I'm like, I'm in this like tumultuous in between. And then we get the first like Juan Gedeon art and the Sergio art. And Sergio is someone like I've interacted with him on Instagram a little bit. He's an absolute delight to talk to. And when he puts up pencils for these issues, I'm like, dude, the like stupid good. Like it's so good. So these artists are coming along with you to end the story. And I feel like you were saying, like we got as many of the threads tied together as we could. Was there a thread that you didn't feel like you had enough runway to land, that you wish like, oh man, I wish we could have done that one too? Was there any of that feeling?
Well, we did have, I wrote an alternative, like I had a first outline on this that was something else, and it would have tied, like I'm not sure I should tell you, like we had I don't know, but we wanted to, well, I wanted to somehow touch on the Death Stone, and I had an alternative version where we sort of tied up that like Thanos Death Stone properly, but then we sort of like there is a plan, and we didn't want to step on that, and we don't know what's going to, like, I don't know anything about what's going to happen with it, so this was a sort of we knew that people were really excited about the vision and what's going to happen, and we knew that like if we were to give them what they wanted, we would need to give them something else as well, I suppose, because you just can't just hand it over. You have to then you have to punch them in the face with the other fist somehow, and we didn't have enough runway to do that, I suppose. So we had to leave that for another time. But it is like I knew I had to deal with the souls of Valhalla, and I wanted Odin to be back in Valhalla, sort of settled his spirit out of Mjolnir, and him to be back, like Thor to have his King Thor moment when Al begins the book. And we did that, but we also got to do like all the stupid nonsense that I love to do, right? So I had so much fun with this, and I know that it is there are a bunch of different timelines, and we have Lausa coming from the future, and there is so much nonsense happening, but it all makes sense. I promise, it all makes sense. And it's been sort of like a delight to figure out how everything fits together, and trying to make sure that Al can take over, but we still leave some things for him to play with if he wants to.
You can hand off the book to this young upstart Al Ewing, and hopefully hopefully the kid can figure it out.
Maybe we'll see.
Well, he may have a future in this business. I will say this, Torunn, we know you're also you're not just a creator, you also enjoy reading stories, and you enjoy other creators. When you found out personally that Al Ewing was the one that was getting the ball next, what was your reaction as a creator who also loves the stories of other creators?
Well, the thing about Al is that, first of all, I trust Al more than most people in this world. He's just so fucking good, and he looks at stories in a very it's interesting to work with him on story. We're doing some things on Venom together, and there are things when he explains what he's doing, I feel like had it not been Al, I would have been worried. But because it's Al, it's going to be fine. You know what I mean? He knows how to write a fucking comic book. So I was just so excited. And he sent over the master plan for what he's going to do. And it is spot on, exactly what I want from Thor now. So I'm so excited about it. I can't fucking wait for the first issue.
I'm when that news dropped, I had about half a dozen people send it to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Trying to get my grounding. I think I called Will right away. It was we found out someone was engaged, and we were just like, oh my gosh, what do we do? This is so exciting. How do we celebrate? And then our buddy Martin Coccolo gets to draw it, and Alex Ross covers, and fanboying way too much over comics that you didn't write. But it's
no, seriously, I will join you in this. But the thing about Martin is he's so fucking good, right? And he deserves.
No argument
here. It's I can't fucking wait to see him on a Thor book. It's gonna be well, we've seen him do Thor before, but his own thing, right? I can't fucking wait.
I still someday hold out for my my Torunn and Bilquis Evely Thor book. I'm holding out for that. That's a dream of mine in the future. But to read your full arc of Blood of the Fathers, and then to get Martin coming out, it just feels like it's a great time to be a Thor fan, especially in comics. And we've got the Colin Kelly, Jackson Lansing annual coming up very soon. There's so much, Walt Simonson came back to do a Loki story in What If Dark, there's so much going on. Loki got his own limited series, but everybody, that's all kind of a preamble. We're looking into I feel like we're in the midst of a time storm right now where we're looking into the future, when Thor 35 just got here. And Torunn, can you maybe just tell listeners how did we get how did we get to the beginning of Thor 35? What do like readers need to know getting up to this point in your story of, you know, the Black Infinity Stone, Thor, Lausa, Thanos, Doctor Doom, Hela? I mean, big time Hela issue.
Like the entire story before we got to this
I
nonsense?
like you know, when you're writing this and you get to this last issue, like what at what point were you at where you're just like, okay, I've got to land the plane. Here's the story I want to tell for this last issue of this run.
Well, I suppose what we were trying to do with what I was trying to do with the last issue, because a lot of the other things were sort of wrapped up in 34. We found out what would happen with the big experiment. We realized like it was Hela being born. So the most of the sort of tension we resolved in 34, right?
Yeah.
So the idea was to just give everyone a nice send-off somehow. The idea of like giving Hela a proper origin story, because we needed something. If like all the souls in Valhalla, if they weren't lost because of the Death Stone, it would need to be something else, something extraordinary, right?
Yeah.
And we would need to like figure out like what could, like all of those souls, what could they make? And it made sense that would be Hela, and it would make sense that because she's sort of like either older than Thor or not, like it's a little unclear, like where she's at in the timeline in general, and I wanted to sort of stick to the Norse mythology of it, where she's Loki's daughter, but she's kind of not. So this was sort of like we had this Hela, who is this character that everyone knows, but no one really truly knows where she's from, and it made sense to give her a backstory, but then sort of follow it up by showing the time and the like how it all happened. And I very much enjoyed, like, if you're going to fuck around with time, it's always nice to play with the idea of like everything is inevitable. Like they already know sort of what's going to happen, and they know that they're sort of playing with fate and destiny. Like they know they can't fight it somehow, but they're still going to try, because that is what people do. They will always fight, right? So the idea of sort of bringing Thor back in time, and then having Loki being like, well, accepting it and thinking, yeah, this sort of checks out somehow. And then Thor obviously knows that it's not going to work out completely. He knows what Hela is going to become. He knows he can't change it anyway, but he knows that giving her to Loki will provide, like, that's what's supposed to happen, so that is what's going to happen somehow.
And they literally fight fate. Like fate shows up.
Oh yeah,
in the spot.
Because I'm subtle as fuck. Like I'm just the most subtle person ever.
I love it. That's right.
I love the conversation that Lausa has with him at the end, where she's like, hey, I can tell you more because I read, you know, what's going to happen in the future. And he's like, don't tell me anything. But basically he lands with, you know, there's going to be good times for them. There's going to be bad times for them, but like everything that like needs to happen will happen. And if I have to deal with anything in the future, I'll deal with it. And I'm like, I feel like that's weirdly and very also comfortingly the most Thor answer he could have given. It's like, whatever's going to happen, I'll figure it out. And then we get that cool like send off with Jane, them having a conversation on the you know the Castle Doom, you know, patio, where first of all, I love when Jane and Thor are in any scene together. I've always loved when Jane and Thor are in any scene together. And
I'm sorry about this.
Yeah,
but I'm losing power. And
no problem.
I just need to figure out why we're not there. Power. Okay. Darkness.
Okay.
But power. Sorry.
No, that's all good. It's all good. I love that, like, the last lines we get are you know, like you said, the passing of the torch. Like, the king is dead. Odin's finally at peace. Finally. And then it's, long live the king, and we just see Thor flying off. We get that cool that fairy tale that he says, like, we had this story that Odin would tell us, and we never wanted the story to end. And I'm over here, being like, yeah, you're right. This is like, that is how I like my Thor stories. It's like, I want to hear the new part of it. I want to peel back a little bit more of it, but I never want this to end. And even if I don't understand a certain issue, or I don't understand even a certain story arc, because Will and I have read our fair share of Thor comics, it's not like every single one of them is our absolute, banger favorite, but we never want them to end. No matter what, we want the story to keep unveiling itself. Which makes me think of this then. You've packed so much mythology into this run of your story. And I know we talked on Instagram a few days ago about the eagle, which I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation of the name.
Yeah, please pronounce that for me. That's the question.
No,
top of my list.
I don't even know how to fucking pronounce it. Jesus Christ.
But
it doesn't make sense.
People will buy your explanation.
No, I'm not sure. I just you try it. We'll see. So what do you say?
I've always pronounced it Hrossvelgar.
Hrossvelgar.
I think that's pretty, like, if we're going to do it in English, I think it's pretty close.
Right. Like, I'm just like sounding it out phonetically in English, and I'm like, I have no idea the pronunciations that are supposed to go with any of these letters. So
the thing is, I remember, like, we used to my mother would always just sort of refer to it as the eagle, not by its name. So I didn't know the name when I was grew up, and it's not like a hugely well-known character, but I always found the idea of it to be such a lovely thing. I always thought, like, the idea of some Viking somewhere being like, what is this thing that is in the air? What the thing, the wind thing? Oh, it's an eagle. Which was sort of, it makes sense. So I always wanted that to sort of work it in somehow, because it is such a cool character, and it is such a, like, the idea of the frost giants, like having a bet and everything. There's a myth where I think it's Loki and Thor who ends up in a sort of a contest of strength with the frost giants, and they keep fighting. Like, the Thor has to drink from a drinking horn, and it's very small. And it's like, oh, if you can drink all of the water in the drinking horn, then you'll win the contest, right? And he tries to drink, and he tries to drink, and he drinks and drinks and drinks, but he can't empty it. And it turns out he's drinking the ocean on Earth, or in Midgard. So that's why we have the tides. And at some point he needs to fight an old lady, and he fights and he can't beat her because she is aged, like she is aging, and you can't fight age. So I was trying to sort of a nod to that myth and try to figure out what could they try to put, like, what would the frost giants pull out and what would Loki pull out, and then fighting fate, just like, it made sense to me somehow.
I was unfamiliar with those stories, and so when they were coming up, I'm learning as I go, and then Googling and looking at the myth and saying, I was like, oh, this is so cool. So I feel like I'm pretty on top of a lot of Norse mythology, but then introducing, like, your wealth of knowledge into the book and these superhero comics, bringing to light some Easter eggs or nuggets of, like, deep lore and myth, was just I think just an awesome part of this particular run of book, even though I can't pronounce the names, but knowing and seeing the art come to life and doing that. I mean, growing up on the coast myself, like, in terms of weather and wind creates the waves and all those things, or where is it coming from, where is it going, it's just a good part to think through and explore. And yeah, I was going to bring up that panel too. I was like, yeah, so good. So good.
I told Torunn this, like, I stumbled upon that character. I was reading I have a few volumes of Norse mythology that people have just sent me, because if I have a Thor podcast, I must read, Eddas and stuff like that. It's like, I actually am not that well versed in it, but hey, shout out to Nathan Gilmore, our Northern European medieval literature expert that's on our Simonson episodes. He would be like, how did you guys not know this? Well, we don't have PhDs. So but I stumbled across this character, the eagle, and I was like, how has no one done a story with this? Like, right. It's so fucking made for a Thor comic. Like,
yeah. But that happens a lot when I think like, oh, we should use whoever. Like when we used the Draugr, which we had in 29 or 30, I think.
Yeah.
I thought like, I think they've been used before. But every time I read like, so what have they done with this thing? And it always feels a little off. Like with the Midgard serpent as well. And like, is it the dragon in the Marvel universe? What the fuck are you doing? Like it is. But there is a sort of joy in taking something and then making it into the Marvel insane way. So I sort of enjoy it, but I was very happy to see that no one has used the eagle. And I hope we'll see it again, because it is sort of.
And you did that in your run, even like you like Nidhogg is a big part of, like he's one of the kind of cause and effect things in your run, where it's like, yeah, he eats souls, so he's gonna gobble up all these souls, and he's gonna be an integral part of the story. But then of course it's like, he can't just be an undead dragon, he has to be a cyborg undead dragon. It's like, that feels Marvel Comics to me.
Yeah, that may feels Marvel Comics. But the thing is, like, if Doom is going to use, like, Doom will look at something and be like, hey, I can improve it. I will take Nidhogg and make it better, right, with using my brain and my tech. And that is sort of a Nick Klein thing. We were talking about what we could do, and he went, well, we need a harvester creature. And it's just like, yeah, can you go make us a harvester creature, Dick? Please, a soul harvester creature? And he did. Like, it is bananas and fantastic, and it's just exactly what we wanted. But it has been sort of, I approached this with a sort of a joyful using all the stuff that I had in my childhood, and then just adding on top of it and trying to just make something that will give people as much thrill as it gave me at some point. And the story is that Odin told Thor, like the stories about Ostegumpen and like the tales of the giant that walks around. That is from my childhood directly. That is my father's.
Wow.
Like, we used to, yeah, but that's not a thing. Like, it's just, that is my dad, who at some point started telling us during the like weekend breakfast, when we would sit at the table for an hour, I would climb up on his shoulders and he would tell us stories about Ostegumpen, who had a wife who was called Snoke Supetryne, which sort of roughly translates to sneaking soup face. And it was just weird stories that he would tell us, and then we would go, but what about the whatever? And he'd be like, oh well, that's next week, and then the stories would never end. And even now, when I take my kids to him, like, he will be like, well, maybe we'll do an Ostegumpen, and he will tell a story, and it'll be like something will be based on something, like some fairy tale, but then we'll fuck with it, and it is the best. And when I was thinking about, well, like, how it would feel to me if my father died, it would be the end of stories, right? So it just felt very much like if Odin were to tell Thor, like if Odin needed to prove to Thor that he's finally dying, like he's stepping away, he's going back to Valhalla, it sort of made sense to me to be like, oh, so this will be the end of that story. And then now it's Thor's turn to make up his own.
Yeah, to pass on the story, to create story and then pass it on to the next generation. I feel like that's what's happening in here, because you have Bor, you have Odin, you have Thor, and even though there's a time storm, but they get to like see a little piece of their family history and try to figure that out as they go, and kind of put the pieces together as we are as the reader. But then, like, you're telling the story, like your dad passed it to you, and now you're passing it on to us. It was like, and there'll be others who come after us who pass it on to the next. And that's kind of what myth does. That's what mythology does. These important characters, and then we do our take on it. Like, we're like, all right, I'm gonna take what's been given to me, and then I'm gonna like twist it just a little bit to make it my own story or make it exciting for the next generation. And I think that's such a gift. And what you're doing with this book and pass it on is great. Yeah.
But I would say that I love that Marvel allows me to do that, because because there's so many people have commented on that specific thing, like, and it's such a tiny detail, but it meant so much to me. And maybe for the first time ever, I will be able to show my dad and be like, hey, look at what I'm doing, because he does not understand what the fuck I do for work. Like he understands nothing. Like it makes no sense to him whatsoever. And people will come up to him and be like excited about my stuff, and like, so what is she doing? That's what he asked me a few weeks ago. He asked me, so do you like write English well enough to do this? I'm like, yeah, Dad, I do. Like,
I've been doing it for a while, Dad.
Yeah, I've been doing it. So I very much look forward to giving him the issue and be like, hey, I put your thing in this book. I think it's gonna be cool. But I think like the power of stories are they're that's why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
There is that sort of hope that like in this world who is falling the fuck apart, and everything is sort of freaking out in different ways, like the stories will if not make everyone come together, there will be sort of a shared something when people read stories, and you will be able to say something about humanity in one way or another. And I like to pull from like I had in, I think it was Mighty Valkyries. I think there was an old lady in the hospital, and Jane was exchanging stories for coffees. So she would bring her a coffee. Yeah, and the story she told was that when during the war she was working in the hospital, and the German came to get nurses for their camp, and she would get into bed and pretend to be a patient, and the doctors would be like, no, she's a patient. So. Yeah, and then she lived in the hospital for 2 years, and every time the Germans came by, she would just jump back into bed because otherwise she would have to go and work at the camp. And that was my grandmother. She did that during the war. So that entire thing was, at some point, I think it was the only time, because you know how, especially women, but like everyone from that generation, when you ask them, so what did you do during the war? What happened? They'll be like, oh, nothing special, because everyone just feels like the big battles were other places,
right? Which
is sort of true, but like everyone has their own stories. Like my grandfather, he made newspapers and went to prison, and the only reason I know that is because when he would eat bread, when it was done with a slice of bread, he would like put his finger and pick up every crumb from the plate. And at some point I asked him, so why do you do that? And he was like, when you went to prison, like you leave no crumb behind. Like you know what it is to starve, so you don't throw away food, even the crumbs. Like, and I was like, you were in prison? What's going on now? Because they don't tell you, right?
The lead there.
What did it? And so that story about my grandmother, she had a few of those, like oh, she did nothing during the war. She did nothing. She just stayed in the hospital for 2 fucking years and lived there, but she did nothing. Like it is, yeah. So I love being able to pick those stories from that sort of amazes me like from my past or from the people that I love, and sort of sneak them in. And I love that Marvel allows me to do that somehow.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful. God, that's so cool. And like this is, you know, it's funny when like we talk to creative people and writers and artists, and it's like it's really fun to see what they, like you said, like what they're allowed to sneak in, and like the little, like almost it's like you're leaving a piece of yourself in every issue. It's like a memento where like even if no one else notices, you do. And it's like I don't know, it's like I'll never read the end of that comic issue. I'll never read the end of 35 the same now, because I'll be like, oh, this is an incredibly personal last few pages, not only for Thor and for Jane and for our characters, but for the people creating this story as well. And like, thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic.
Well, it was strange because I started sobbing every time I read through the script when I got to those pages, and I was like, maybe it's just me. Like, what if nobody, like, and I just checked with the editors and like, is it is it me or is it good? Like, I don't know. But then I've gotten so many people commenting on that exact thing. And I think especially like I've had, like with Jane Foster, there will be a lot of people commenting, like telling you the stories of either their illness or someone in their family who's dealt with cancer.
Yeah.
And so you get a lot of those precious stories that somehow that they're more valuable to me than anything else, about how Jane has somehow affected their lives when they've dealt with illness.
Yeah.
And this week it has all been all the people telling me about their fathers and how their relationship with their fathers, and it is like a beautiful, precious thing to me. So I like that other people also enjoy those stupid little things that I get away with putting in there, and it's always exceptionally gratifying when people get that thing. And then obviously you will have the people who are just like more punching, which I appreciate.
Right. I mean, sometimes fans and fanboys, fangirls will be like, oh, what did you do with this? I can't believe you went this direction. But then we forget that there's real people behind it telling real stories that are personal to them. And I think that's what we on this podcast and others I'm a part of is try to share, is like there's real creative teams that put their literally their heart and soul into these stories and to appreciate for what it is, even if it like doesn't connect you with your own personal stories. Somebody out there is connecting with it. It's always somebody's first comic or their favorite run. So, no geek shaming, like, don't shit on someone's like favorite thing, like be open to what the story. So hearing that personal story from you is really meaningful. And I echo Ryan, like I won't read this the same way again. It's very beautiful.
I love that. I'm going to tell this. I'm going to call my father and be like, "Hey, we got an Ostergumpen out in the world, and people like him."
I just love that he's like, you can write in English that well. That's so good.
Like,
still not the little girl on my shoulders.
The thing is, my father is mostly baffled by everything I do. Like I remember I called him once, and I was like 22 or something, and I told him like, "Hey, I just quit my very nice job to start my own company. It was just so you know." And he had one of those, I'm sure you know what you're doing. Okay. And then like a couple of years later, I called him up and I was like, "Hey, just soon, like I'm pregnant and I'm going to do that while I make the company and while I do all the things." And like, "Okay, you're going to do that while you've just bought a house, you're going to need to like," and he trusts me. But there's always a sort of hesitation behind it. And then I do things and he's like, "Oh, it's cool. Like it's cool." And it's always fun. Like he doesn't understand Marvel, but like Star Wars, he knows, like he knows what Star Wars is. So when I did the Darth Vader thing, he was like, "This is a big deal, right?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. It's a thing."
I love that guy. No, this Darth Vader guy, I know.
Yeah, I've heard about that guy. Well, my mother is more like I think I might have mentioned this last time, because she loves Norse mythology to like a ridiculous extent, right? So whenever we fuck around with it, she's like, "What? That's not how it's supposed to be." I'm like, "No." But I mean, yeah, we're trying to create new stories, Mom. And she's like, "Well, you can't." So she still hates Jason for. You can't. These are real things. Oh yeah, sure. They are.
So really, what I'm hearing is we need to talk to your mom about Norse mythology.
But isn't that what people do? Like with every story, they're like, "Wait a minute, what are you doing with this story?" I'm like, "Well, I'm doing my take on it." I was like, "How could you do Thor this way? How could you do Spider-Man this way? How you can do the X-Men this way?" And you're like, No. I'm taking it and I'm shaping it. Like your mom is like with Norse mythology, the graphic novels of the past are like now, like, "Wait, what are you doing with these stories?" I'm like, "I'm doing my take on it." Oh man, that's therapy to me to hear that your mom does that. So when we're wrestling with the
fact checking
fandom out there, not that your mom talks at all, but like is like, oh, everybody does it. Everybody that cares about these stories want them to be handled with care, and that is fantastic. I was like, "Wait, what are you doing with these?"
But the funniest thing to me is when she gets into arguments with my brother-in-law, who is an archaeologist, and he knows a lot and he knows like the proper stuff, right? And she's like, "No, that's not what like I feel like this is the true story. And he's like, yeah, well, yeah, according to whatever the fucking whatever the thing, we now know that happened in the whatever. And she's like, no, that's not how it worked. It is the same thing because her magic is in the stories that she learned, and she's not interested in like, oh, new discoveries. No. And I think that's beautiful. So we have the exact same arguments. Like she's like, you can't do that, and she's the same with my with all the new information we get from archaeology. She doesn't want to hear it. It's a little bit like, when you rename dinosaurs. That's not okay. You can't come around with facts and be
Pluto
like,
out of the solar system, or
no,
you discover a new biblical scroll out in the Dead Sea. You're like, wait a minute.
We all know that Steven Spielberg named the dinosaurs in '94, and that's what they're called.
Okay.
I love
they don't have feathers. Fuck up with the feathers.
They're not birds. They're
lizards. Well, actually, archaeological data says they have more in common with don't say fucking
Fuck
birds.
up.
Don't you dare say birds. I love the idea of a family like dinner that you all are having, and your brother-in-law's like, the research says, and your mom's like, I feel, and you're just like, I wrote a comic, and your dad's like, and I don't know what comics are.
Yeah. That is pretty much exactly what's going on. Like it is a beautiful.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of arguments.
Sitcom right now.
Oh God, I don't. It is just right now, like after this winter, I'm at that point where I'm like, I'm not sure I can take it. I'm not like, maybe not a full dinner. Maybe we should just do lunch. Maybe we should just do like a quick tea in the garden and then leave. I can't take it anymore.
You sit down and like, okay, we got 15 minutes. Go.
Yeah, let's just get it out of the way. So you hate everything I do? Okay, cool. Let's do it. No,
That's like Americans at Thanksgiving sitting around the table with the news, the political news of the day. Is like, what kind of conversations can I avoid or dive into today?
See, I would say that American during dinner is probably worse, just because God, you guys have a lot of things to talk about.
Yes,
like it is I don't even know. And just to clear, I love America. I love it. Can't help myself. But Jesus Christ, what are you doing?
If the NSA is listening, Torunn loves the USA.
Loves.
We want to get her over here to North Carolina Comic-Con, so don't block her.
Please. But I was renewing my ESTA, and they ask for all your social media accounts. And like no one's going to read through them, I suppose, but they still want them, and I'm just trying to be like, I should probably not say anything. I wouldn't like either way. It's your business. You can do whatever you want, but then I don't want to fuck up my chances of going there, because it is my favorite place to visit. Like it just
right. Well, and you've got so many friends over here now. You know, so you need to come visit them from time to time, and then go to Comic-Cons that we're at.
Yeah, but that's seriously, I feel like the people that I want to spend more than like an hour with, they're just, the list is dwindling down to a very few people, but all of them basically are in the US. That's the problem, right? So I during the pandemic, I was just at home at the cabin, and then I went to New York or Chicago, and then I went back to seeing no people at all. But it's a great place.
We're about at an hour, so we're either about to turn into a pumpkin, or we have a shot at being on the dwindling list. I don't even know.
No. Oh God.
I want that. I want that never-ending coffee mug, or like you talk about drinking the tides and the never-ending water. I want one of those for my coffee. It's like, wait, I can't empty this thing. That's the magic goblet I want.
See, I also want that, just with like very, I don't know, I want fucking wine. That's what I want. So that's if we're honest here, that's
right.
I do feel like just so you know about the like, I enjoy talking to people who understand comics, and I realize the more I spend, like now I work full time writing comics, which means that like all of my problems are comics related somehow, and it's a very strange thing to try to explain to other people. So I just find it easier to hang with comics people than to You know what I mean?
Wonderful.
And it is, and I try to, like, there's no other way to do this job than to go all in, right? Like you have to, because it will take the heart of you anyway. So you might as well try to make it something great. But like if I try to explain to someone what I've been doing that day, and it's just like, well, I know that I want Frank Castle to kill someone, but I just want it to be in a fun way, like the other way than I did last time. I just need some creative ways. Or right now I'm writing Venom. And I'm trying to figure out really horrible, like, you know, the things that will like burn your soul. I'm trying to figure out what to do that within the structure of American comics, where you can't show anything too horrible, and you can't, but you can still make scenarios that are like you will figure out the rest. You will fill in the blanks and then be creeped out. That's what I'm going for, and that's my problem right now. Just it's not horrible enough yet. Let's go.
We are but I forget what I was reading, but I read a manual on like writing and creating comics, and it was like that the gutter in between the panels, that's where the reader gets to really imagine the things that the author or the artist could not put on the page, or like didn't have space to, didn't have time to. And it's like right there, that's the abyss that we get to jump into. And it's like, what was Torunn going for here? It's like, oh no, gosh, she couldn't have been going for this. You know, that's too horrible.
But it is that, like you remember in the very beginning of American History X, when he kills someone, you have to bite the curb, and then you can tell the guy is going to break his skull, but we don't see it. We just see the teeth hitting the curb, and it's just a visceral. Is when I think about like the most horrible thing I've ever seen on screen, that's the thing I go to, and we didn't even see it. It's not what you're trying to just figure out those things, like just really fuck with your brain. But it makes for strange days, is what I'm saying. Delightful but strange.
I remember you saying, like, the first time we chatted, and everybody, if you haven't listened to our first chat with Torunn from last year, what are you doing? Like, come on,
what are you doing?
Yeah, what, seriously, you told the story about sitting at dinner and your husband being like, what'd you do today? And he was like, I have to figure out how Frank can kill this person in a more gruesome way. And it was like, pleasant dinner conversation. That's fantastic.
Yep. But it is, you know, we know he can kill, right? So we just need to make it something. And it is, I find it interesting and especially I got a comic collection the other day, someone's comics collection. And there were just like boxes and boxes and boxes of comics, old comics from 70s, 80s, 90s, American, European, everything. And and it was I got it for like, I saw on the top of it, they had like 4 books that I really wanted, but I didn't know the rest. And it's so much good stuff. And I would say about 30% of it's just porn. Like it's just porny 80s comics where there were no, like, you just had some guy taking something, just drawing all his sexual fantasies, and that's a book, right? Like, just check it out, that's a book. And sometimes be like, oh well, let's do that just in space. Like, yeah, sure, let's do it in space. And it was the exact same thing, just fantasies in space. And I realized, like, going through these comics, that we managed to shave off the edges of pretty much everything, right? We're trying to make things cleaner and easier to swallow, and which we're trying to be like both respectful and not. Is it like in the new Top Gun movie? They're fighting a rogue state. They never tell. Like they never say the name of which country they're fighting. It's just a rogue state,
right?
And we are sort of dealing with a little bit of that, just trying to figure out how we can tell important stories without ever being too explicit with anything. And it is an interesting challenge, but I do think there is something in all the porny nonsense that I found, that there is a sort of freedom in it that I sort of miss a little bit, because it is. And I'm perfectly capable of going, well, I don't know about it. Like it's not like I'm just going to be like, oh, it's on the page in front of me so therefore I think it's good. And I think that I trust the audience to be able to read anything and be like, hey, this is going too far in some direction without being too horrified. But the point is trying to figure out how to tell important stories within the confines of what we're dealing with, but still make it interesting enough, right? That is a lot of the challenge. Making, like, we know where we're going, so we're trying to find the scenic route that will give you something along the way.
I love that, like, someone might stumble upon this collection of comics, be like, Torunn, there's a lot of porn in here.
Oh my god, there's so much porn.
Space porn. There's space porn.
Oh yeah.
It's more refined.
Sci-fi
yeah.
porn.
It is sci-fi porn. Like the woman is a planet. She is a planet, but she is shaped as a woman. But there's also those great 90s comics where it's just like, oh, there's a woman taking off her shirt, and you've spent 6 panels on that. It's not relevant to the story. It's just the act of her taking off the shirt takes a really long time for some reason.
Like, is she confused as to how the shirt works? Like,
but it must be an important shirt.
It must be an important
so much time taking it off. But I don't know. But I mean, it would be like at some point, like when I die, this studio is going to be an interesting, like my kids are going to discover some things, because I'm not throwing the porn away. Jesus Christ. It's like a treasure. And I have a few like comic book people that I keep texting every time I find something new. I'm like, hey, look at this. And they do enjoy it. I feel like that could be, maybe that's my Substack. I'm going to open the Substack, just be like, hey, just so you know.
So good. Deep in the comic book long box. These are things that I find my Substack. I will subscribe and pay for that. Your
friends that are getting all these texts, they have like their partner or their family nearby, and like, you've been getting a lot of texts lately. Like, what is it? Like, oh, Torrunn's just sending me more porn she found.
More porn.
No big deal.
Torunn decided that it is only porn if you have an erect penis entering something, because if we were to, because that seems to be the where they drew the line at some point. You can show anything in like the whatever comics, you can show anything but the penis entering something. So if you have that thing happening, that's porn. I think
you can
that's
have a naked woman as a planet, but no penetration. No penetration as a planet.
That's at some point the comics people decided that's that's what makes the porn comic, and that's what just make.
I just want to jump in here, quick PSA. If you are still with us, you are one of the if you're still with us and you didn't quit about, I don't know, a half an hour ago, good on you. You are
good on you. Thank you for listening.
And Thor 35 legacy number 761, there's no penetration, y'all. Just that, like, let's just say.
Will, I didn't realize you were going to read the publication solicitation there.
That's right. That's the if you're looking for penetration, go elsewhere. But this comic.
I did want to give you like a chance, like, here at the end, like what are we expecting from you in the next few months? I mean, you mentioned Venom, Red Sonja, Realm of X is something we're very excited about. Like what can we expect from the works from the cabin that are coming our way?
Okay, so Red Sonja is the first one to come out. It's going to be out on the 19th, I think, and it's the 50th anniversary of Red Sonja.
Wow.
Dynamite asked us to go like bold and big and back to basic, and that's exactly what we've done. We sort of, it is sword and sorcery, Red Sonja at her most shameless. It is ridiculous and fantastic, and I love every page. It is sort of freeing in a way, because I realized the joy of writing this genre where I don't feel to there is no mirror to the world or society in any way. It is just funny, fantastic, horrible, and exceptionally violent at times.
And that's new for Red Sonja, because usually she holds back and she's very withdrawn. And not
so we really brought her out of her
finally
shell.
She has finally blossomed.
Finally. And then I have some Venom coming up, which I'm sort of, I didn't know I'd enjoy writing the symbiote stuff as much as I do.
Okay.
It is a sort of a strange place in the Marvel universe, but I fucking love it. They're so easy to make the stories interesting. And because the symbiote lore in general, it is sort of like every time I have a question and I will ask the other writers and editors, and I'm like, good question. Yeah, we don't know exactly how that worked out, or how that which sort of it lends to sort of we can do a lot of different cool stuff to tell what I think are pretty interesting stories. And then of course we have Realm of X, which is a joy. I'm excited. I'm terrified and excited. I think that's the one I'm most nervous about, just because like I have my relationship with these characters, and I got to choose the team, and it's bananas, and it's just these crazy women.
What is the lineup? People that don't know, because I know Magic's like front and center on the promo stuff.
Yeah, we have Magic. We have Danny Moonstar. We have Typhoid Mary. We have Dust, and we have Marrow. And then we have Curse fucking around making and the thing is, like, I was like, oh, this is a cool team, what we're gonna do. And then people saw it and they reacted with like, this does not make sense at all. They're gonna tear each other to pieces. And I'm like, yeah, isn't that the fun of it? I don't know. And I think my only regret about this book is that we have 4 issues. Like, one is 30 pages, but I could have written 4 times as much with these characters running around in Vanaheim. And that's my only regret, is I'm not sure, like, I hope we will be able to do everything we want to do. But Dio's pages are just out of this world, and the covers are great, and it is a joy.
Putting Dust and Marrow on the same team, I can't wait for that. That is so good. Like, two just totally different people like hanging out on a team together. That's what I like about X-Men comics. Yes.
Yes. And I do like that, like, Dust is she's such a powerful character, and I don't think she sort of gets the credit for being as powerful as she is. Right. But it's been interesting just because her the capacity for violence that she has, it's been an interesting thing to try to figure out where to what she would allow herself to do, sort of, because she is the only one holding Dust back, if you know what I mean. Wow. And it's been, I mean, it is a joy to write, but I think it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I've never been more stuck on trying to figure out how to, like, not do too much exposition, but still get all the tiny little things across and try to explain their powers in a way that makes sense. Because I would like it to be a book that you can pick up without knowing 40 years of X-Men history.
Yeah,
right.
Or heck, even it being a part of this Fall of X thing that we've got coming up, like this huge, big, I don't know if it's more of a promotional crossover, or the stories are all going to cross over together. I just know we get Realm of X, we get a brand new freaking Iceman book by Steve Orlando, which I'm so beyond stoked about. There's so much a part of, like, Will knows this. I'm not an X-Men reader. I'll pick up a Storm limited series when there is one. I'll pick up Iceman, and other than that, I don't really want to jump into the deep end of the pool. But Realm of X is kind of like a perfect combination of what I love, what Will loves. So we're incredibly stoked to read Realm of X. Torunn, is there anything else that people need to know about what's going on in your world?
Well, I don't know. There are some things that I desperately want to talk about that I can't. So just, I don't know. Stay tuned. There will be more news. I'm working every waking moment at this point, and I don't think I've ever had as much fun in my life with comics, except possibly doing like Thor with Nick Klein. I talk about Nick Klein in every podcast I do.
We try to as well. We try to mention Nick as much as possible. It'd be way easier to talk about him if he were here at some point. You know, who knows, Will? Who knows?
He is elusive.
Oh my gosh, elusive as hell.
That's what makes it fun. I do have to bounce here. I gotta hop out.
Yeah, but any parting shots before you head off?
Torrunn's delightful, and she stuck the landing, and I can't wait to get her to North Carolina Comic-Con at some point.
Hey,
anytime. It was delightful to meet you, Will.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you later. See you.
Torunn, we're gonna land the plane here and let listeners know where can they find you, follow you on social media if they want to keep up with your projects.
Well, that's a good question. Do you think Twitter is gonna finally implode now?
Here's the thing. I was never on the Twitter boat. So I avoided that whole thing. And then I saw some of my friends were like, oh, we're off Twitter. I'm like, I was never there. So like, I don't have an opinion. Maybe. I think it depends on who wins the fight between Musk and Zuckerberg. I want to see them fight. And then I want to see like a third party come in at the end and just mop them both up.
Yeah, because it is fascinating how like those are the two gladiators, like the pasty men gladiators, like no one really wants to see it, but we just want the fight to be over. It's something.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm on Twitter until it's not there anymore. So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. I think the easiest way to find me is just to Google my name, because I can't, like, every time I try to like go to Grønbekk everywhere, and it's just like no one knows.
Right.
But I'm pretty easily accessible if you want to talk to me.
And we can't wait for the vintage porn Substack. It has to be imminent. I mean, like you said, you're not getting rid of it. But
I need something to do. Like it would be. I need a legacy, and it's going to be vintage porn, like comics porn, not like the other stuff. Just comics porn.
It'd be crazy.
There needs to be some story there.
Your kids and grandkids are like, yeah, she wrote a lot of comics. I'm like, yeah, but like we know her from this one thing. this
very specific thing.
But Torunn, thank you so much for coming back and just helping us finish out this run of comics. We're really excited for some of the stuff we talked about earlier on in our conversation about like where Al is taking Thor, where we've got an annual to talk about, coming up soon by two of my favorites, Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing. There's so much to love in the world of Thor comics, and you have helped us enjoy the end of this run as best as we possibly can. So for all of us Thor fans, thank you so much. And we're looking forward to Realm of X. I'm thoroughly pumped for it. I haven't read a lot of magic stuff, so I'm excited to dip into Ileana's world, as crazy and nuts as that might be. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight, as always.
And everybody, you can follow us at Mighty Thor Podcast on Instagram. You can check out our Patreon, where you can get a pregame conversation from this chat, where we talked about a bunch of other silliness that didn't make the episode. Everybody, until we see you next time aboard the Rainbow Bridge, we encourage you one thing, and that is to stay worthy.